Rachel here. Welcome to my Slow TV Stitchery. Well, good morning everybody, and as you will see, I have put the framework in place for quite a large section now, because it did seem to make the process of recording last time so much more pleasant, and it means that we see progress, which doesn't show very well, in fact, when I'm just showing the framework. You would think it would be obvious, but it doesn't photograph very clearly. In fact, I have a feeling this is going to be one of those projects which is really lovely in person and rather underwhelming in reproduction. But that's okay. I've also not been able, however hard I try, to tighten the canvas work and the canvas any more than it is, as I have started to wind up the already stitched section. It's just not flexible to curve round the strut of the frame, so it's becoming harder to stitch just because the fabric is giving in odd places. However, if there's one thing we've learned over the years, I think it's that, generally speaking, once a piece is finished, you forget all the agonies. That's wrong. It's surprisingly difficult to count accurately sometimes. Yes. It's slightly brighter today, believe it or not, than it has been the last few days. I'm trying very hard to avoid using my work light for this, because gold and work lights don't necessarily get along very well together. Suddenly remembered I'm supposed to occasionally have a larger flame in, but I think there's a large one there and a large one there, so I'll stick with what I've got. So, latest book I've been reading, after 15th century political satire told us a fairy story with Reynard and tramping distractedly through the landscape of the Dark Ages with Max Adams. I spent the last week and a half in the Middle Paleolithic, I think, reading Becky Ragg Sykes' book about the Neanderthal, which has just been published. It's called Kindred. And I think, if you remember, there was a fantastic program a year and a half ago about, in particular, what they'd been able to learn from the excavation in Kurdistan at Shanidar. And they had got an animation company to work with them on what they could deduce about movement and dexterity from the results they had, and it had been really quite fascinating and demonstrated moderately clearly that our Neanderthal cousins were not nasty and brutish or anything resembling it, but actually early humans, not that different in technological capabilities or culture from our direct ancestors of the same sort of period. So it would appear that Becky's book has been researched and written over the last 8 years, which makes it a pretty epic project. Not as epic as my Amana embroidery, but the Amana embroidery was much less stressful and much less prone to moving goalposts, because of course the thing about the science is that as you develop new analysis techniques, you find that you can deduce new things. And deducing new things gives you whole new questions to ask. This is exactly the sort of project that I would normally be quite comfortable working two-handed, but only when I have the canvas nice and taut and it's stretched in odd ways. At least I assume it's stretched, which is making it much harder than I would like normally. So I'm having to use a slightly unusual technique by my standards, because finding the holes from underneath is much easier when the canvas is straight and taut. Oh, now, have I got something silly there? No, that's a relief. So it needs to be straightened. I still haven't had the courage to look at the Amana family. I think I have a vague underlying suspicion that I am going to find myself unpicking quite a lot, and I don't really want to, so I'm hiding, which is not the way to get things done. So certainly sometime before the new year I need to gather my energy and my courage and tackle it properly. either that or work out how I can produce the effects I want to produce without a lot of unpicking. I'm still half hoping to have an inspiration there. So it may be that one of these weeks you will see the Amana family return. I will try to remember to record my musings if I get round to having them. I still haven't decided how I'm going to do the angel's hair. Curly, masses of French knots, or raya stitch or turkey stitch, long, straight, maybe plaited. Maybe plaited with gold twisted through the plaits. Which I suspect would be more in keeping with the original Margaret MacDonald May Queen design that was the distant inspiration. Now, something peculiar has happened there. Just feel that the heavenly choirs probably don't need hairdressers somehow. They just, so maybe plaits and twisted coils of rope are a bit not quite right. At some point I will have to have some inspiration on that subject. Because this concentrating on stitching this for Slow TV has made it gallop down the canvas, and this next bit, once it starts to narrow around the angel's cape, will go really quite quickly, which in turn means that I will soon be at the stage of wondering how to mount it, but first wondering how to do the angel's hair. So I do need to come to a conclusion about that. The sun is coming round now, as well as having my light on. In fact, I'm not sure the light's making much difference anymore. So it's soon going to be quite impossible to see what I'm doing for the light bouncing around, which is an improvement on not seeing what I'm doing because it's too dark. So, for these and other mercies. I haven't managed to work out the most economical way of tackling this pattern. So I am hoping very much that there's enough thread on these reels I don't think I have the vaguest idea how I would estimate how much I wanted, apart from the empirical stitcher section of the pattern, and hope that my usage is typical. That's all for this session. I hope you enjoyed following along. Happy stitching!